UConn has lost 4 of its last 5 Final Four appearances, with the lone win coming a couple of years ago. Iowa beat this year's favorite South Carolina in last year's Final Four. They're coming off a win over the defending champion LSU Tigers. The public all over Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes, laying the 3.5, 79% of the tickets, 86% of the money on the favorite in this matchup. So let's, Erin, get right into this matchup and do so by welcoming and saying hello to college hoops analyst Kelly Gramlich. Kelly, the public likes Iowa a lot. Do you?
You know, I'm with the people, guys. I think that Iowa is the play here. Iowa to cover the number. And really, when you look at the spread, I would have put this spread more at maybe 5.5 or 6.5. UConn, to me, is getting a bit of a bump because they're UConn. And you mentioned, guys, that UConn hasn't had a ton of success in the Final Four as of late. UConn has not won a national championship since 2016. It has been a minute for the Huskies. And Iowa, I think this is their time. Caitlin Clark is just so hard to slow down. I think UConn will have a little bit of a better plan than LSU, but I still expect Caitlin Clark to thrive and this game to be up and down. Iowa to use their depth to really wear down UConn and cover the number.
All right, Kelly, a woman of the people like in the Hawkeyes. Do you find yourself in similar company?
I'm not for the people. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure my mom bought a shirt that said that for me one time. I'm going to take the UConn Huskies with the points. Now, I know the public's all over Iowa, and rightfully so. I totally understand why it's really hard to slow down Caitlin Clark. Makes a lot of sense. We haven't been able to see any team be able to slow her down, but I do think that UConn can at least hang in this game. I'm not saying UConn's going to win this game, but I do think it will be closer than people suspect. I think there's something to be said for a team that's just played a really emotional, high-covered game like Iowa against LSU. I think there's a potential that they come out flat in this one. And Paige Beckers has been phenomenal so far in this tournament, averaging 28 points per game. So I expect her, along the like side of Gino and the experience that he has, to keep this game closer than people suspect. So I'll take the points.
Yeah, Erin, I'll stand with you amongst that small minority that thinks UConn is the play here. And Kelly, you've forgotten more basketball than I'll ever know in my lifetime, but I was kind of surprised to hear you say that maybe it is Iowa that's being shortchanged here. I wonder if it's the opposite. I wonder if we're paying a tax on Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeyes because she's coming off that 41-point, 12-assist effort. So I'm with Erin here. I'll go with UConn plus the points. Keep it close. Don't need to win it outright. Kelly with the people on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's talk about player props, though. And, of course, we got to talk about Caitlin Clark, pardon me, Kelly. What point prop do you like going over tonight? If it's not Clark, who is it?
Well, I love that you guys are talking about Paige Beckers because she's been very good in this tournament. And I like her over 26.5, mainly because I like the pace of this game. I think this game is going to be very much up and down. Anybody who watched LSU Iowa, all 12.3 million of you, know that that game was very up and down and fast paced. And that's what Iowa's going to do. This game, to me, is going to be played in the 80s. And so Paige Beckers is going to score for UConn. But I think Iowa, in the end, is too much. Beckers and UConn, they don't have much depth. Iowa has a good bit more depth. I think they can wear down UConn. And then I think Stolke with Aaliyah Edwards inside, plus O'Grady and others, that's going to be a very important matchup. But to me, UConn just can't really shoot it with Iowa. And then Nika Mule in foul trouble. That's something to keep an eye on, too. But I think UConn will lean heavily on Beckers and take the over 26.5 for her.
And I think it's important to note these are one-way markets. You can only bet the over because on some of these players, I would like to bet the under because there's just narratives. Obviously, some of them are set higher, but they are one-way markets.
That's a great point about that. And as UConn backers, we would love to see Kelly be right about Beckers and have her go for 27 or more. All right, Kelly, sit tight. Back with you in just a second on the other matchup we're going to see, which is South Carolina and NC State. And the Gamecocks favored by double digits, 11.5 over the 3-seed Wolfpack. NC State, though, a perfect 4-0 against AP top 5 teams this season. And got the number 1 team in the land tonight. All right, 57% of the tickets, 60% of the money on South Carolina, so not as overwhelming as the previous game we were discussing. Erin, bring it back to the desk, and I'll start with you. Explain what you are going to be doing with this matchup in this game.
I would take the points here with NC State. It feels like a lot of points for a Final Four game. I know everyone has been preaching on that, but it really does. And This NC State Wolfpack team, they've been covering the number. They're 3-1 against the number so far in this tournament. Not to mention double-digit favorites for the women's side of things are 8-18 against the number so far in this tournament. So again, it's just because it's such a high-profile game. I don't think South Carolina is just going to blow them out of the water. I think South Carolina wins for sure. I think they go on and win it all. But if we look at this Wolfpack team, I mean, they've been shooting their free throws well. They've been shooting good for three. They're top 15 defense and second chance points allowed per game, which is really good against the South Carolina offense that really thrives off those second chance points. So they can go head-to-head with this team to some extent. Now, again, I think South Carolina wins, but I just think that they're going to be able to cover the number.
Okay.
Also, if you want to parlay that, plus 250. Right now with UConn plus 2.5, you get that at plus 250. A lot of numbers. Just look at the app.
Parlay the dogs, plus 250. I like that. All right, let's go back out to KG and hear her thoughts on this matchup. Kelly, are you willing to lay all those points with South Carolina?
Erin, I completely agree with you. I'm taking NC State plus 11.5. I do think this feels like a big number for a Final Four game. I love your note about teams not really being able to cover those double digits in this tournament. NC State is playing great basketball. Outside of their first round game against Chattanooga, they have covered against Tennessee, and then Texas and Stanford not only covered but beat those teams by double digits. They're shooting the ball at an incredibly high rate. Sanaya Rivers, their point guard, is very familiar with South Carolina. She spent her freshman year with the Gamecocks. And the way NC State is shooting the ball with the experience and the veteran presence that they have, I think this game is going to be close. Plus, South Carolina's led a lot of teams back in some of these matchups as well. So even if South Carolina does play well, could get a little bit of a cover towards the end as NC State fights their way back into the game. NC State has lost one game this season by 12 or more points, and that was at Miami when River Baldwin, their starting center, was out. So when they're healthy, they have yet to lose a game by that margin. I'm taking the Wolfpack to cover.